Welcome to Backwards Compatible, the video game retrospective podcast where we discuss, analyze, and reflect on some of the most notable and varied titles in gaming history. I'm your host, Chase.
And I'm Garrett.
I'm gonna sing the Doom song now.
Dum dum dum.
Wow, caught me off guard. Went to breathe out and then she made me cough hard. Contact the god and let him know to slip two in.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
How are you
Stop.
doing?
What is this? What is this? We are here to talk about one of the greatest games ever made and actually a pioneer of a genre, Doom 1993.
You could just stylize it as Doom.
Doom. So, pretty much, we have some history with this game in terms of
I want to know
last week.
I want to know what your history is with this game, because when I was in high school, someone had somehow installed Doom on all of the school computers, and during lunch hour, me and some buddies, when we had some time to kill, we'd play a few rounds of multiplayer or work through the campaign. Yeah. Simpler times, man.
That sounds like a great time, definitely during high school. But I will tell you, with my experience, it's nothing like yours. You got some nostalgia. Me, I was introduced when I actually got to college. I knew about Doom, but I didn't know too much to the point where there was the lore. Even though with the 1993, there's not really a lore, but I actually got exposed, well, a little bit, but compared to Doom Eternal, probably like Doom Eternal probably has like a step or two up compared to that. But Doom Eternal was actually the first time I ever was introduced to this franchise. I've never played the game, but I loved watching the journalists just fail epically at the game.
When it comes to the modern games, I have a bit of a soft spot for Doom 2016 because that was the first game I bought after I started a pretty decent job looking back on it, and I kinda associate Doom 2016 with those early days, getting to know my coworkers and everything there.
I'm sure that was quite an experience for you, like as in like it's like your first ever purchase.
Well, I mean, I had some income beforehand. Like, I had worked some odd jobs before, but my first real job, that was the first thing I bought.
Okay. First real job. Got it. Okay. Like
Doom?
W-2s, all that fun shit.
But yes, Doom, 1993. What is there to say about this game that hasn't been said? I feel like its legacy speaks for itself, given the whole existence of the first-person shooter genre.
Okay, so my mother is very Christian. I feel like if I was younger and I asked her to play Doom, I would have a case.
Oh yeah,
I could,
we'll get
whip
to
it
the
out.
controversy this game spawned among the
Yeah.
religious circles and communities.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, it's like Doom is just where the FPS genre really got its start. Now, it wasn't the first FPS game. That title goes to Wolfenstein 3D, also developed by id Software. But Doom is what really refined and, for the time, perfected the genre. It was much more graphically impressive, and the gameplay had a lot more variation and distinction to it compared to Wolfenstein 3D. So while Wolfenstein may have been the first proper FPS game as we know the genre today, Doom is what really codified the FPS game to the masses. Yeah, so hopefully this episode won't be a repeat of last week, which was essentially me just monologuing to myself, because Garrett here has actually played the game.
I did my assignment, unlike the past times. But with this game, I will say it made me feel like I was in an arcade. It had that style to it. And with that 3D platform, there were so many weird things with the controls. But first off, I think we should start off with episode 1 and let's kind of go from there and we can talk about everything else while we're going through.
Right, well, we should get the nitty-gritty details out of the way first. Doom originally released on MS-DOS on December 10th, 1993. Developed by id Software, and published by... oh boy, here's the thing. This game has been around. Pretty much anything with a battery and a screen you can play Doom on, and even then I think the screen is optional. This game has been published by Activision, Sega, Atari, and for the modern games, Bethesda, just to name a few. But pretty much every video game console system, Doom has been on it.
Yeah, when you told me all of these publishers and then all of this wide spectrum, it just kind of it's kind of funny that we steered to exclusives in the gaming market.
Well, the developers behind this game really wanted this game to get as popular as quickly as it could, which is why the first episode, that being the first 9 levels of the game, were released freely as shareware back in the day, which we would today call like a free demo or something. Of course, you would still have to pay to get the other two episodes at the time, but it's a pretty good business model. It resulted in Doom quickly becoming an extremely popular desktop game. Too many employees at companies were spending more time playing Doom than actually completing office work.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's actually pretty insane.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't imagine my boss, like, I used to work in a pharmacy. I can't imagine my boss just coming around the corner and me just playing Doom 1993 while
Yeah.
these people are trying to get their meds.
Yeah, man. Doom was such a phenomenon when it first came out. It very quickly rose to the top of the gaming charts.
Well, going through the
And
roof in sales and popularity.
the initial development for Doom began not too long after Wolfenstein 3D released. The developers at id Software wanted to create another game utilizing their new and improved game engine, which could handle much more advanced graphics compared to Wolfenstein. They ultimately settled on the idea for Doom as a soldier fighting off an army of demons after being inspired by a D&D campaign they were playing through at the time.
Now, D&D is quite an adventure, and I will say with D&D, if you guys find an in-person group as what I personally like compared to an online group, it can be addicting as long as you have the right people for it. Also, wasn't there an influence with like other games as well?
Not necessarily other games, but other influences were to movies like Aliens and the Evil Dead series.
Oh, really? Like Aliens. Okay, hold up. You say Aliens. Are you talking about the Alien?
Yeah, Aliens, xenomorphs and all that.
Yeah, and that's that actually kind of makes sense in its level design with those corridors of metal.
Doom was a pretty big step forward for 3D graphics at the time, with its textured floors and ceilings, improved lighting, as well as its integration of vertical level design, which Wolfenstein lacked, so you could fight enemies that were above and below you, even though you couldn't look up or down, which took some getting used to compared to modern gaming controls.
I know. I when I tried to look up and fire at people who are on the balcony,
I mean, all you
I
have
don't
to
know.
do
It
is
made me
just
feel sick to my stomach. You just have to point in their general direction and it'll hit it.
Yeah, you just have to aim at them and it'll still hit them, which, it's definitely weird by today's standards, but for the time, it was a pretty neat idea.
Mm-hmm.
Also, side note, but one of the designers is named American McGee, and also notable for creating the Alice Madness Returns games. But American McGee, that just sounds like an alias for someone.
Well, with a horrible Texan accent like
Uh,
that.
I'm sorry, American. If you ever want to come on the podcast, we're open to invites. The story for Doom is very cut and dry. I believe one of the developers of the game was quoted with saying, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing here, story in video games is like story in porn. It's expected to be there, but it's not the reason you're playing.
Fuck?
Yeah,
What kind of a quote is that?
I mean, it was the early 90s.
I guess. What that just took me so off guard. Was he into some sort of stuff? Did you do a little digging on that or not really?
Yes, I actually have a full copy of his Google search results from the last 10 years.
Oh my gosh, list them off.
But as it is, the story follows an unnamed space marine, or Doom Guy as he's colloquially known, or Doom Slayer as per the modern games. So, let's talk about everyone's favorite green armored space marine with an AI assistant.
You can definitely see some parallels in between these two characters, can't you?
So, according to the backstory of the game, he gets assigned to a small security detail on Mars after he assaulted his superior officer, after the officer told him to fire on civilians, which he refused to do, so, he's not too bad of a guy.
Yeah, and not to mention, sounds like he has some steel balls and won't listen to authority if it's against his morals, and I can get behind that. He's somebody who I would like to have a drink with.
However, as you're guarding the facility on Mars, you realize that the company you're working for, the UAC, they've been up to no good. They've been dabbling in that devil worship, I tell you what.
All that devil worshiping, it do be bad. It do be bad.
Technically, the two episodes don't really take place on Mars itself, but rather the moons of Mars, Deimos and Phobos. But anyway, while Doom Guy is out on security patrol, the facility on Phobos goes completely radio silent, so your team gets assigned to investigate, and lo and behold, bippity boppity boo, you got a portal to hell on Mars, bruh.
It's definitely a jump from just being on regular guard duty to being, well, the Doom Slayer, which is a great promotion. But with all those demons, you would think he would run out of ammo.
I really like the small detail that you can see Doom Guy's face in the lower section of the UI. He's looking around. He reacts when you shoot demons, like he'll get a face of like, yeah, 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 gun him down. And as you lose health, his face will become much more bloody and damaged over time. It starts off with like a simple nosebleed and a black eye or something, but if you get down to like 10% health, he just looks like a zombie himself.
That definitely I totally forgot about the facial emotions that he shows, which I thought was a great addition to this game. It definitely made it seem that Doomslayer still was human, even though he's this guy that you're controlling that's mowing down everything in his path. Because every time that he was very critical, I just felt so sad for him from all the blood that's on the side of his head. I'm just like, I gotta find a health pack, in which I think reinstates the importance of taking care of your health as well as your ammunition to ensure victory in this game.
So the rest of the game is you're on Mars, there's demons, rip and tear, Slayer.
You can do it with your fist, you can do it with the pistol that you're given. And that's actually the first weapon you're given, and you're only one for the first couple of episodes because I didn't find where you could find another weapon.
Right. The first few levels take place within the Phobos research facility, and the enemies are pretty simple for this part. The game, I have to give this to Doom, it does ease you into the enemy variety pretty gradually, because throughout the most part of the first episode, you're only fighting zombified human soldiers. There's not too much wacky. You're not really fighting against the full legions of hell at this point.
No, you're just shooting up your comrades that have turned into demon zombies.
You got the Lost Souls, which are floating, flaming skulls, and these things are really annoying in huge numbers because they just rush at you, and it takes a while to reload the shotgun, and it's a whole thing. You got the Imps, which not too bad individually. They're pretty weak, but they hurl fireballs at you, and again, in numbers, they can be somewhat overwhelming, especially on higher difficulties. And then, of course, you have just Pinky Demons. Good old Pinky Demons.
Tell us the design of the Pinky Demons.
I mean, they're demon, dinosaur, gorilla looking things. They're just
I
big
kind of think
maw.
of them. I think of them more as like bulls, to be honest.
Well, they do charge at you and they try to bite you with their giant mouths and fangs, but yeah, you look at it and you're like, yep, that's a demon straight from hell if I ever done saw one. It isn't until the end of the first episode when you have to fight your first quote-unquote boss fight. Not really a boss fight, it's more like elite regular enemies. It's not technically a boss fight, but you do have to fight two Barons of Hell, which are these giant stereotypical devil-looking things. You know, they got the hooves and the horn and all that. They throw green balls of fire at you, which hurt a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. But speaking of those demons, so when you go into the final room, you see both doors open up and you just have these stairs. I thought that the red floor was toxic or something. So I was dancing on them with those stairs for probably 5 minutes, and I still couldn't get them down with the difficulty that I had it set to. Guys, I'm just saying, if you ever decide to pick up this game, try running everywhere and just see if it hurts you or not.
Let's segue over to the music side of things, though, because the music in Doom is just so fitting. It creates this atmosphere of something that's action-oriented, but also somewhat eerie and sinister, especially in the later levels when you go down to hell itself. The boss themes also help get your blood pumping, because not only does it have a gothic feel to it, but it also has a very, oh yeah, let's get in there and fuck shit up, man.
Yeah, this game, it makes you go from mowing down to mystery with the piano. Dude, that piano hits really hard.
Yeah, I really like the music to this game. On the subject of sound design, the monster sound effects I really enjoyed. Nowadays, they have the impression of stock sound effects, and I think they were even at the time, but hearing those generic monster roars and everything, I don't know, man, I just really like it. It just puts a smile on my face hearing all the monster sound effects.
It releases the serotonin. It releases serotonin because it's so good.
Also, picking up ammo for various weapons is pretty satisfying as well. Just hearing that little as you pick up a chain gun ammunition pack. Yeah, you know you're about to have a good time.
Now, real talk, every single time that I picked up something, it flashes yellow. I thought I was taking damage. So
yeah, that does get a little confusing at times. Also, how did you feel about some of the various power-ups? There's Berserk, there's Invincibility. There was also a power-up that allows you to see in the dark, the Amplification Visor. It's a neat idea, and it was useful in 1 or 2 levels, but for the most part, didn't really have much of a purpose. Now, granted, now I don't think it was in every level, but a neat idea, but very niche.
I mostly love the partial invisibility just because I didn't really use the power ups that much. And for me to get a better tactical position, you having that partial invisibility really helped.
There's also the Berserk power-up, which enhances your strength, but I never really used it that much. I didn't find it that necessary, although it was fun the first couple times to just go on a complete rampage. Now, starting with episode 2, entitled The Shores of Hell, this is where the enemy variety really gets kicked up a notch, because not only are the Barons of Hell much more common now, but you also have to fight against cacodemons, which are essentially beholders, but without all the other eye tentacles.
Yeah, and I actually love their design. Those
Yeah.
eyes and that smile as they sort of float either towards you and they just fire off that red and blue bolt of whatever that is.
Hell plasma.
Hell plasma. Damn, they got all things in hell. But
Although I do feel bad for killing cacodemons because the whimper they make when they die just makes me feel bad. They're like, "Brr, brr."
yeah, screw them. I don't like them.
I mean, they're giant floating mouths essentially.
and the color on them too. The red and purple just it's so good. They did enough red, purple, and I think a sort of beige color to them. I don't know. That's just my favorite enemy in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the cacodemons are one of Doom's signature demons. Episode 2 is mostly the same as episode 1 in terms of story, as in, there's not really one. You're just fighting through the research facility, this time on Deimos, which has become much more corrupted by the forces of hell, and eventually you reach a Tower of Babel, which is where you have to fight the first real boss fight against the Cyber Demon.
Ooh, a cyber demon, eh? Now tell me about this boss fight.
He's like a bigger cybernetic version of the Barons of Hell, in that he looks like a fairly generic demon devil thing, but with cybernetic enhancements. You're given a shit ton of rockets to fire at this guy because that's essentially the only weapon that can hurt him. You have to run around the arena shooting rockets, being careful not to not only damage him, but also yourself because the rocket launcher will hurt you, and the damage he deals is insanely high, so yeah, it's a pretty good boss fight. After defeating him, you think you're done, but then you look up and you realize you are no longer on just Mars. Hell itself has opened before you. So, what does the Doom guy do? Cocks his shotgun and jumps into hell.
Thus leading to episode 3.
Inferno. A lot of Divine Comedy references for this one. Like, the final level is in Hell's capital city of Dis, I think it's called. So if you're familiar with the works of Dante and Virgil, then you should know what this is a reference to. But yes, episode 3 of Doom takes place within Hell itself, and the demons are not letting up. You still got plenty of ammo and weapons to find, but the difficulty level has gone up significantly. Ultimately, episode 3 and Doom in its original form when it released ends with the Doom guy slaying the Spider Demon, the Lord of Hell. Now, like the Cyber Demon, the game encourages you to use the rocket launcher in order to defeat the Spider Demon, but you could just do what I do and use the plasma rifle and keep spamming it at him, because that just makes the boss fight significantly easier. But yeah, after you defeat the Spider Demon, the game more or less ends there, with the forces of Hell defeated and peace has been restored. But as you depart from Hell and return to Earth via a portal, you realize that the Spider Demon was one step ahead of you, and Hell has come to Earth.
Oh no, dude, Earth is fucked.
Yeah, so a couple years after Doom released in 1995, there was an updated version of the game that was intended for physical retail titled The Ultimate Doom, and it included a 4th episode of a series of levels titled Thy Flesh Consumed. This doesn't take place on Earth itself, but rather it takes place in a sort of purgatory between Hell and Earth, and the gameplay is largely the same. It's just more of Doom, but it ends with another boss fight against a spider demon, and it's after you complete this episode that the finishing text reveals to you that Doom Guy's pet rabbit Daisy was among the casualties in Hell's invasion of Earth.
What the fuck? They start killing animals now?
They killed Daisy the bunny. And Doom
Well-
Guy doesn't like that, not one bit.
Nah, because that's just fucked up. You can't touch another man's rabbit.
Right, so that's basically where the first Doom ends. Thy Flesh Consumed, episode 4, it was essentially intended to be a setup for the sequel to the game, Doom 2, which took place on Earth itself. But yeah, that's the plot for what it is. Like I said earlier, it's not really a story driven game. It's all about the combat and slaying demons, ripping and tearing them to shreds.
I can just imagine the chainsaw revving up right down the dark hallway.
Oh, yeah, I mean, let's talk about the weapons that you can use to do said ripping and tearing. First off, you got your fists, which are, yep, those are fists,
Old
alright.
and reliable. Punching him in the face, punching the demon in the face and dodging his bite. Boy, that's just some clean shit.
I never really used the fists too much because, I mean, why would you? They're the weapon you have when you run out of ammo for everything else and you don't have the chainsaw. But if you ever pick up the berserk power up, it defaults you back to the fists, with improved strength and power, of course, but still.
Yeah, but that range, man, range on the fists, it scared me because I feel like I have to hug them. You know what I mean? Like I gotta hug them in order to actually do some damage. And really, it seems they have quite a bit of range compared to what Doomslayer has. But as you
But
said, if you have the chainsaw, this is where the fun begins.
ha ha ha, I am the danger. Yeah, the chainsaw. So the chainsaw is, the chainsaw was probably my second favorite weapon. It's just so fun to use. You just rev up and go full hog on these demons. And it's a really effective weapon because even though it's melee only, once you lock it onto an enemy, they can't escape or fight back. So all they can do is stand there helplessly as you grind them down into a bloody paste. It's
Hey, Chase. I think Doom Guy is Leatherface.
sure, I guess, kinda.
What? It's the
Uh,
Halloween season, my guy.
I
You
know,
have
I
to
know.
do
It's
some
looking a
sort of
little
reference.
it's looking a little spoopy out there right now.
Just a little bit, yeah.
But
Definitely making me scared in my room.
I'm literally crying and shaking right now.
Oh man, but I'm crying and shaking at the pure awesomeness of this chainsaw. Next
We got
we have our pistol.
Yeah, the pistol. I mean, it's a pretty standard pistol. It's pretty weak, relatively slow rate of fire, has decent range, but yeah, it's a pistol, you know. Pistols have always been considered the weaker weapon when it comes to FPS games, partially because of how it's portrayed in this game.
Except if you're Halo or
Yeah.
Bungie.
Yeah, except in Halo, of course. But I never really used the pistol as long as I had better options. It was always a last resort weapon for me.
Now here is my favorite weapon that's coming up. The shotgun.
Oh yeah, the trusty shotgun. I wouldn't say it's my favorite weapon, but it is the one I often found myself using, partially because ammunition for it is very plentiful throughout this game.
Mm-hmm. They love you getting up and close and having that singular action of blowing their face up. It's pure bliss. Pure bliss.
Of course,
It
the super shotgun wouldn't be added until Doom 2, but for the one in this game, it's pretty reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the chain gun, the good old minigun, Gatling gun looking thing. Now, this weapon I really enjoyed using. It's just too bad ammo for it wasn't as common, because this thing can just mow down the weaker demons you fight. Like, you get a room of imps or zombies, and you can just plow them down. You're mowing the lawn with this thing.
Fresh cut demon. Yeah, I can tell you the chain gun was an awesome thing to just lug around. But ultimately, I don't know, I just never felt the real oomph behind it. It had a different sort of appeal for sure, but the chain gun, I also realized with the chain gun, it doesn't even rev up. You just fire it, which I think is it kind of made it kind of broken, but the damage on it is not really super bad. So I guess it wasn't too out of balance.
We ain't got time to be revving up our guns. We need to blast through these things right now, which is what the plasma rifle's for.
Yeah, the plasma rifle, aka upgraded chain gun, it's a work of art, I will tell you that.
Yeah, like the chain gun, ammunition for it is a bit more on the uncommon side, but man, when you find it, I think the plasma rifle is the most powerful normal weapon, quote unquote, because it stuns enemies into place when you shoot at them. At least I assume it does, because when I was blasting Barons of Hell with it, they weren't moving much. And it's also extremely powerful compared to the rest of your weaponry, aside from the two bigger boys we'll get to in a second. But I typically use the plasma rifle when I'm finishing off either Barons of Hell or boss fights like the Spider Demon. Then, of course, we got the rocket launcher.
Oh, yes, the rocket launcher. I didn't have too much time. Like, okay, I picked up a rocket launcher in episode 1, the final mission And I was so disappointed I didn't really use it. Because
Yeah,
okay, let's talk about let's talk about something real quick. So with your weapons, they stick through you from mission to mission. I'm not sure about episode to episode.
as long as you don't die, you carry them with you.
Yeah, but once you die, they're lost forever, and it just makes me so sad. It makes me feel like I can't kill right, and that's how sometimes I can get caught in this infinite loop of me trying to take him out with my pistol, but the pistol doesn't do that much damage. It does pew pew damage compared to anything else. That was like the old game hardcore. Like that made me kind of rage a little bit, not gonna lie, just because I couldn't get past one room due to me running out of pistol ammo and having to resort to my fists at 15% health.
Hey, that's what you get for playing on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty.
Look, it was so hard, but it was so fun.
As for the rocket launcher itself, I never really used it that much outside of the Cyber Demon boss fight. I just feel like the game somewhat discourages you from using it because it and the BFG are the only weapons that can actually damage you back if you fire it too close, and considering most of this game takes place in tight corridors or up close combat, yeah, I often restrained myself from relying on the rocket launcher too much, although it is very powerful and good at dealing with large groups of enemies. And then, of course, we have one of Doom's more iconic weapons, the BFG 9000!
Dum, da-da-dum, dum.
Big fucking gun, baby!
Jesus. Like seeing the design of this thing, it's just so big. How
Yeah.
else can you describe it? It's like its own mini ship.
Just as the plasma rifle is the better version of the chain gun, the BFG is the better version of the rocket launcher. You fire this thing at a demon and it just annihilates them. They are gone.
There is no saving him.
It fires a giant blast of green plasma energy and just decimates the legions of hell. This must be how God feels.
Is that why he is up there? Because he's too afraid of what he has created.
Alright, calm down, Steve Buscemi.
I'm sorry.
So those are all the weapons in the original Doom, and considering how influential Doom has been, most of these weapons have become staples of the FPS genre. I mean, shotgun, pistol, chain gun. They may take on different forms in other games, and other games have added on, like there's not a sniper rifle in this game, which has become one of the other typical FPS weapons. But all of these weapons have stayed with the genre, and in many ways, the pistol and shotgun especially, a lot of modern games to this day still trace their gameplay mechanic roots back to Doom. The shotgun has always been a short range, a powerful weapon. The pistol has always been the relative weak, easy starter weapon. It's just another example of just how influential Doom has been on video games as a whole.
It was also something that made a culture of FPS.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the FPS games that have come in the years since. Half-Life, Quake, Counter-Strike, Halo, Call of Duty to a certain extent. All of these games can, at least partially, trace their origins back to Doom. Doom was so enigmatic of the FPS game that for a long time, really up until the late 90s, any first-person shooter game was labeled a Doom clone.
And that's how you know the game you made was successful. I'm sure the developers were very happy and couldn't wait to see where this went. And I'm glad they gave us more to this series.
Well, after Doom, we got Doom 2, and then we got Doom 3, and there was also Doom 64. But after that, the series just kinda faded away. There wasn't any Doom games for a good while. That was until 2016 when the series came roaring back from the depths of hell itself with the reboot, Doom 2016, which itself got a sequel with Doom Eternal, another good game.
And what a beautiful soundtrack that one has, which we'll save this conversation for later.
And in a way, Doom 2016 has also kicked off its own generation of imitators because over the last couple years, we've seen an increase in a lot of FPS games that draw inspiration back to the 90s era of shooters, or as they're called nowadays, the boomer shooter era.
Okay, boomer.
That said, just to go on a little bit of video game controversy history here, Doom's release wasn't all positive reception and sunshine and rainbows. There was definitely a bit of vocal outcry against this game for quote-unquote satanic influence.
Well, it is demons and hell.
And it is a gory game, admittedly, but I believe Doom released not too long after the Senate hearings regarding video game violence and sexual depictions.
I didn't know about the sexual depictions. Where the heck did that come from?
I believe the game Night Trap is what Congress was talking about. Congress, not Senate, my bad.
Oh, okay. Damn. Like, yeah. And then I think I kind of remember this era where people were talking about how video games were like going to crash society,
Yeah, I
which
mean, there's always a scapegoat that society is looking to blame for why kids aren't doing the things parents want them to do, or at least what parents perceive the kids as not wanting to do. In reality, it's mostly chalked up to parents being like, I don't feel like watching my kid, or being an actual parent these days, so I'm just gonna blame everything else.
blame on the kid.
I mean, to give you an example, I think Doom was cited as one of the reasons the Columbine massacre occurred. Now, disclaimer, I don't have all the information and facts right in front of me right now. This is just going off my memory, but people blamed the two shooters at Columbine as the reason they did it is because of violent video games, and Doom was the main culprit that the media put their blame on. That said, I don't think there was any real meat or truth to the matter. I don't think the two shooters actually played Doom, so make of that what you will.
Yeah, let's backtrack on that.
Yeah,
But
we kind of got lost in the sauce there, everybody. But back to Doom. It not only inspired the proliferation of the FPS genre as we know it today, but it also influenced other games as well in terms of level design and weapon implementation. So I guess that kinda does it for now. I know this episode was a bit on the shorter side, but as far as the original Doom is concerned, outside of its legacy, there's not too much to really talk about. It's a pretty straightforward game, you know? You just blaze through the levels, grab the key cards, and gun down demons. That's about all there is to it.
in the end, is that all that Jesus asks of us?
We all know for a fact that Doom is Jesus approved, so...
Hey guys, good job on that demon slaying. Keep it up.
Like I said, though, we might return to this franchise in the future, because for the original games we have Doom 2, Doom 64, and Doom 3 and all that, but I also really want to talk about the modern games, because those are very much worth playing today, and I highly recommend them to all those who haven't yet.
Yes, definitely do try it out. I'm going to try it out personally.
Alright, I think that about does it. Any final thoughts you have on Doom 1993 and all of its hellish glory?
Doom is eternal.
Thank you for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. If you want to leave us any feedback or ask us any questions, then you can email us at backwardscompatiblepod@gmail.com.
I've been your host, Garrett.
And I've been your host, Chase. Thank you all for listening. Do you think Doomslayer's gonna show up in Has Been Hotel one day?
I hope so. That'd be a nice change of pace.